Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to say that it is an honor and privilege to be addressing you here today in Budapest. Thank you for this opportunity. I am happy to see politicians, decision makers, and experts from all over the world. This underlines that CPAC has become a truly global event. And I am glad to see and meet my old friends, and tonight President Katalin Novák and Prime Minister Viktor Orbán and former Prime Minister Janez Janša. And also I met our Czech President and Prime Minister Václav Klaus, who founded a real conservative party. It was the first after Velvet Revolution. And I am looking forward to meet new friends. I wish to talk about European Union. Why? As many of you are aware, elections to the European Parliament will take place in about a year's time. Their outcome will determine the future of EU, the future of our children, I have also 4 children, and generations to come. Nowadays, Europe is being held hostage by climatic activists, CO2 ideologues, and the Green Deal. No one denies that protection of the environment is absolutely crucial. But if pushed through in this current form, the Green Deal will destroy European industry, destroy reliable energy sources, impoverish European citizens, and make everyday things such as cars, summer vacation, or even meeting meat a luxury only the richest will be able to afford. It is obvious that the Green Deal will come at huge social, economic, political, and geopolitical costs. Costs which could create enormous tension in society, even between allies, open door to radicals, and threaten our democracy. Officials in Brussels totally ignore these dangers and believe that the EU, which produces a mere 9% of global CO2 emissions, will save the world by committing such a ritualistic green suicide. The fact is that without cooperation of the world's biggest polluters, the Green Deal will achieve nothing for global CO2 emissions and will bring about a green dark age in Europe. The Green Deal in this current form could only be the beginning of much more sinister assault on individual freedom and liberty in general. The environmental governance social credit system, ESG, already aggressively pushed forward by progressive activists and fundamentalist politicians in Brussels, could soon be forced not only on companies, but on citizens as well, much like the social credit system in China. People who spend too much on petrol, eat too much meat, travel too much by plane, spend too much on heating, could end up being blocked from getting loans in banks, being denied airfares, or even being blocked from public services. In a few years' time, we could be living in this Orwellian dystopia. Institutions in Brussels try to influence politics, democratic elections, and the decision-making process in some EU member states through EU funds. Money is being allocated to projects accordingly the ideology, climatic, gender, progressivist, etc. Often in conjunction with like-minded media and NGOs, but not according to what member states want or need, like roads, schools, and other infrastructure. In addition, old EU member states often point out that new member states are net beneficiaries and should therefore be grateful and tacitly omit the fact that tens of billions of euro pour out year after year from countries such as the Czech Republic via dividends. In case of our country, this is between 10 to 12 billion euro every year. It is said that the EU is no longer an organization promoting the free movement of goods, people, and ideas. It is not longer an organization striving to make citizens' life better. Brussels has become an ivory tower detached from everyday life, a hotbed for lobbyists and swelling bureaucracy dictating to us how to live, what to eat, and what to think. National sovereignty, freedom of speech, common sense, no ideological education, conservative values, our traditions, our way of life, all of this is under attack from Brussels. This is why we must fight back. We must take back control of our lives and the lives of our citizens. We must reclaim Europe. We must save the European Union for the sake of our children and the sake of generations to come. I love Europe as much as I love the Czech Republic. I live here, as does my family and my children. My company, which gives jobs to 35,000 people, is based in Prague and does business in Europe. I founded a political movement to fight corruption. I served my country 4 years as Prime Minister, and before that, 3.5 years as Minister of Finance. In short, my life is here, in the Czech Republic and in Europe. And I want Europe to have a future. Any rational person will tell you that the Green Deal must be redefined and a new agreement must be drafted. An agreement which will not be blinded by climatic ideology, but will be based on rational targets and take into account the disposition, capacities, and infrastructure of individual member states. Instead of its mad pursuit to save the world from CO2 and dreaming up more and more new plans, the EU should complete projects left unfinished. As for the single European market, there is still much work to do in the area of 4 freedoms, i.e. the free movement of goods, capital, services, and people. The Schengen area is fragmentary. Romania and Bulgaria are still waiting to be accepted. The EU should actually invite the Western Balkans and Serbia to join the Schengen area. I always saw the EU as a Gaulish village of Asterix and Obelix, le village de Asterix and Obelix, with well-protected border on the outside. For Europe, it means sea borders and free movement of people, goods, and services on the inside. In addition, Europe still has to complete key trade agreements with countries around the world, most notably the United States. The EU should also learn to pursue its own path and defend its own interests, be it in foreign policy, security, or trade. Europe should strive to be self-reliant in key strategic sectors, such as defense, agriculture, research and development, pharmaceuticals and vaccines, nuclear energy, oil and gas, microchip production, to name just a few. Instead of an underdeveloped backwater religiously keeping track how much methane do cows produce, and forcing citizens to ride bicycles to work and eat bugs for dinner, Europe should strive to be a respected and confident economic, intellectual, technological, and cultural powerhouse that systematically works toward making the lives of its citizens better. Only then can EU continue as a project which people will trust and support. Europe has the resources. Europe has the know-how. Europe has the people. Europe has the potential. The only thing it lacks are leaders. The problem with European institutions is that politicians there are driven not making people's life better, but by their own benefits and positions. In Europe too, we need politicians who wish to pursue the national interests of their countries and at the same time want a strong and confident European Union on par with the other superpowers like the United States and China. I have always maintained that one should run the country as if one runs a family business based on vision, strategy, and solidarity. In the EU, I see none of this. Everything is subject to politics, strategies are changed every election. For example, EU energy policy is totally chaotic. How else could, during the same week, Finland, after 16 years of construction, open a new nuclear capacity, whereas Germany just shut down the last of its 3 nuclear power plants the same week? Why did Austria invest so much money in a brand new nuclear power plant, but never open it because of anti-nuclear hysteria, so now buys 15% of its electricity consumption from Czech nuclear power plants? And I could go on and on. The European Council, instead of acting as a board of directors which set targets and deadlines for the European Commission to fulfill, it is the unelected bureaucrats of the European Commission who actually decide. We need to change this. This is why I believe the elections to the European Parliament in 2024 could send an important signal and to be the first step in turning the tide against the progressivist madness gripping Europe. If there is a substantial backlash against these policies in the European elections, we can start to repair the damage and to coin the phrase, "Make Europe great again." If the EU is to survive globally among other superpowers, it must remain strong and independent. I fully endorse the remarks of my friend, French President Emmanuel Macron, who pointed out that Europe should be autonomous, not a follower of the United States or China. I am glad that more and more people are finally realizing what I have been repeating these past few years. To wrap up, I think this is crucial to realize that Europe is at a crossroad. Its future and existence is at risk. But I can publicly promise that I will do everything it takes to get rid of these green activists, bring the EU back to reason, and ensure that the European project continues for years to come. Thank you for your attention.